Welcome to the Practice Brave podcast. I am the host, Brianna Battles, founder of Pregnancy and Postpartum Athleticism and CEO of Everyday Battles. I'm a career strength and conditioning coach, entrepreneur, mom of 2 wild little boys, and a lifelong athlete. I believe that athleticism does not end when motherhood begins, and this podcast is dedicated to coaching you by providing meaningful conversations, insights, and interview topics related to fitness, mindset, parenting, and of course, all the nuances of pregnancy and postpartum. From expert interviews to engaging conversations and reflections, this podcast is your trustworthy, relatable resource for learning how to practice brave through every season in your life. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Practice Brave podcast. Today I'm here with Mary DiStasio, formerly known as Mary Peck, and I'm really excited to have her on the podcast because I met her a couple weeks ago at the Pregnancy and Postpartum Athleticism coaching certification that we hosted in San Diego, and she just had so much great insight and experience to share, both as a coach, as an athlete, as a mom, and as a nurse even. And it was just really interesting to talk with her, and I thought her perspective on a variety of things related to Olympic weightlifting, coaching, pregnancy, postpartum is really valuable. And Mary, I'm excited to have you here.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So give us a little bit of your background as an athlete, coach, etc.
Yeah, so I was a gymnast for many, many years. Probably, I think it was 18 years. I did it through college at the Division I level. And then right before my senior year in gymnastics, I kind of dabbled in Olympic weightlifting, finished out my gymnastics career, had some schooling left over, and just kind of went full send into Olympic weightlifting, competed in that, got decent at it, I guess, fairly quick, and decided to pursue that. And so I went on and competed for Team USA in Olympic weightlifting. I was at the 2016 Olympic trials, competed internationally for them at like the Pan-Am level, the University Worlds. And it was a lot of fun. It really was. I guess an older athlete, I don't know if that's really, now we have athletes obviously in their 40s competing in the Olympics, but back then, like, I considered myself to be an older athlete. I always had that notion of like, you peak at, 30, women peak at 30, 34. So I ended up feeling pressured by just society in general. Also maybe a little bit burnt out by sports. So I retired in 2019, and then we started having kids in 2022. So really, I got into coaching pregnant and postpartum athletes mainly just for like my own knowledge. I got a certification in Girls Gone Strong because I was an athlete. I was still Olympic weightlifting. I was cycling. I was working out 2 times a week. I was doing CrossFit, all the athlete things, trying to find my identity in a world without being an athlete. And I still wanted to continue that, and I needed to learn about it. Previously, I've been coaching in the gym for many, many years. Both in like Gen Pop, Olympic weightlifting since 2015. So have a lot of experience with that, but transitioned to pregnant and postpartum more so when I got pregnant. And then during pregnancy was fine. I thought I was doing all the things fine. And then postpartum was just probably the biggest struggle. And that's when I really realized there was a huge gap in just like information and just services provided for not only athletes, but just general population as well. These moms just trying to figure out like how to get back into exercise, how not to rush back into it, what's good versus bad, is it even okay, like just all the things. And so really just guiding them through that journey, because as someone so knowledgeable in the strength training world, I struggled with it. And then just having, that like athlete mentality, I feel like thinking back to it, I get so emotional about that journey just because it was so challenging. I was so used to being on my own, doing my own things, not having many limitations, pushing through pain all the time, and then just realizing like, whoa, wham, like smack in the face, like here's a kid I have to take care of. My body hurts so bad. I can't get into the gym like I want to. So just really branched off and got more certifications. I got certified by you probably a year after I started coaching pregnant and postpartum moms, and very thankful for your certification. I'm just going to say, just because it's more related to what I do, more related to like the athlete mom. So very applicable to the clientele that I coach, and to my own life. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of about it. And then I'm a nurse as well, registered nurse in women's health. So I do that as well.
Yeah. Clearly a very high achieving woman. And that's been the story of your whole life with gymnastics into competing with USA weightlifting and doing that. So how old were you when you retired from that? You mentioned that you were like,
29.
you were 29. And so
Yeah.
like, we know that, like, I guess with perspective, like, oh, that's not that old, but you're right. Like we've seen a huge cultural shift. I'd say even within the last 10 years around women competing at older-ish ages and still performing really well.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think it's really humbling when you have this really like expansive athletic background. You know, you're a nurse, you've been coaching a long time, and oftentimes it's not until we get rocked by our own experience. You mentioned postpartum, that it
Hmm.
really forces you to reassess everything, right? Like your whole history as an athlete and how that's tying into this current season of life. And that is really challenging. Like you said, whether it's our athlete population or Gen Pop, it really forces you to look at what you're doing, why you're doing it, and is it serving me or is it hurting me? And that's so hard to navigate.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you say all the time too, like moms don't necessarily recognize that until their second postpartum pregnant journey. And so I kind of recognize that, but I mean, I was very much trying to get back to my pre-pregnancy routine
Yeah.
early on, even though I knew how to, the things that I probably should do to rehab my body and retrain and all that type of stuff. But like, I think the mentality of it was more challenging sometimes than the physical. I mean, I was pretty wrecked physically too, but
Yeah.
I didn't really gain that insight until the second time around. Like now I'm a year postpartum.
Yeah. It's so easy to think that you are, and not just you, like all of us, like that we're the exception. Like, well, yeah, like that applies to most people, but not me. Like I have too much of an education or I really understand my body and I
Hmm.
don't, this doesn't apply to me
Hmm.
until you realize
It
it
does.
actually does. No matter
Yeah,
like how fit you are, no matter what your background is, it's all transferable and it's all relevant.
I know. And you want to help people before they get to that point.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's like you don't know it until you're in it.
Totally. And even
Yeah.
like as a coach, I think it's easy to not really understand a lot of that until you become that person yourself and you gain that perspective. And then it just opens up like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, this population, even though it's not a special population, it has still been really
Yeah.
kind of overlooked in our coaching background and education, our certifications, all of that. Even like I think in the nursing world, it's not all very transferable to the realities of what women experience with their bodies, especially if they have fitness goals and interests.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, talk to me about what your pregnancies were like and then postpartum, like what was challenging, what went well, all of that.
Yeah. So I was very fortunate to have pretty easy pregnancies both times. I think probably better the second time around. I just had more knowledge about how to train, what things to focus on, when to kind of take a step back and not let the athlete mentality over, overtake but when to step back and rest and stuff and not like feel guilty about it. Really, all I had was like pubic symphysis dysfunction, which I knew how to manage. It was so much better the second time around. Birth was good too. I think the first, both vaginally, fairly easy. The first time, I don't know, I think probably 12 hours of labor, which I feel like is, shorter than most people's first time. Um, but I mean, I still had almost a second degree tear, which is minimal compared to a lot of people. But I don't know, I just did not expect what I was going to feel like afterwards. And so once everything wore off and I got home, I remember it just being like a struggle getting out of bed and just like that heaviness and being an athlete and someone who's like so in tune with their body. That was so like it was a huge struggle of mine. Like just being like in this out of body world and then looking at myself in the mirror too, because we have these, you know, we always have achieved a leaner state and more fit state. And I've come from sports that you've had to be smaller, gymnastics and then Olympic weightlifting where you're cutting weight. And so just seeing a body that I didn't even recognize and having all of that insecurity was a lot to handle. And then just being in so much pain, like tailbone pain, that I couldn't even sit on a chair or like sit in the bed and feed my baby. And so just having to rehab that and get back into lifting and not really knowing what that looked like or what it would look like, kind of realizing like, okay, this is my reality. So second time was better, but still struggle. I think, I had a better mindset about it. I was okay with being slow, and I took in like the slowness, I guess, so to say. I leaned on those cat naps more and
Yeah.
appreciated that. Whereas the first time it was like I was trying so hard to get my daughter to nap at a bassinet so that I could run to the gym in my garage. I was already dressed in my gym clothes, trying to put her down for a nap, putting her in the bassinet, running into the gym to do whatever I could, and then getting interrupted 10 minutes later. And it just caused a lot of like rage, anxiety, and all of the things. And I just did not like the person that I was early postpartum with my first. So learned a lot from that, did a lot better with it second time around. But still, I'm still struggling with back pain. It kind of popped up a little bit later, around 4 or 5 months. So I think postpartum has always been more challenging for me than pregnancy. And yeah.
Yeah, I think there's so much attention around pregnancy, and people really kind of hyper fixate on it. That like, oh, what exercise modifications do I do? What do I need for this? What do I need to do for that?
Yeah.
But I tell everyone, like, it's postpartum that you are more vulnerable. And it's not that you are still like this fragile person, but I feel like we're actually a lot more resilient during pregnancy and postpartum. You are recovering from a significant physiological process. Even if birth was relatively straightforward,
Hmm.
there's still a lot going on. And we are just naturally at a deficit in terms of like our mental health, our sleep, our body is healing, tissues are remodeling.
Yeah.
Like we are under operating, even if you're really athletic and have a solid baseline of fitness,
Yeah.
there's still a lot of variables that like influence how we feel, what we look like, what we do, what we're not able to do at this
Mhm.
point in time. But I think there's such a cultural expectation, especially in the athlete community, to
Uh-huh.
get back to training. And then you see other people, and then you have the comparisons of, well, that person was doing this at however many weeks or months postpartum, and you see new thing, like new information come out, and you're like, well, gosh, maybe I should be doing that. And
I
it
know.
just adds so much more challenge to what's already a challenging season for many female athletes.
Yeah, and the online space is challenging too. I think that's one thing, and even myself. I'm all over social media. I have to be for my business, and but there are times like I have to either unfollow people, not because I don't like them, not because I don't support their journey, but it gets in my head, and you start that comparison game, and that's just such a big thing. Is you cannot compare to other people and their journeys. Everyone's journey is so different, right? Everyone has different birth experiences. Everyone has different support systems. Like there's so much that goes into it. It's unfortunate that there's like more support in pregnancy than there is postpartum. Still to this day, it's definitely gotten better. But even just like in that online space too, like being a coach in the online space, I'm very like, and I'm sure you understand too, like sometimes the verbiage is so hard.
Yeah.
It's like I'm trying to tread so lightly because I want to support these moms and I want to give them the help that they deserve. But then it's also like I don't want to, I guess, get them in their own heads essentially of like, am I doing this right? Or because I didn't do any type of movement in my first 8 weeks, does that mean I'm behind? Should I have done this because Mary has this program or Mary said that you should be doing this? And it's such a challenge. It's
Oh yeah.
such a
No,
challenge. Yeah.
it is incredibly hard. And like it seems like no matter what you say or do, like there is always somebody kind of committed to misunderstanding you or unintentional like application, right? You're like, that's not what I was saying,
How
but
is it?
that's how it was interpreted. And like we can't control all those things. And then even just comparison to what other people are saying. And it's a really hard space to navigate online because there's a lot more attention, there's more voices, there's more
Mhm.
information, there's even more research. But like we talked about this past weekend, there is so much nuance to coaching, especially the athletic population, that is not well reflected in so much of what we see online. Like
Oh yeah.
people would look at you and say, okay, yeah, really high level athlete, really qualified coach, great pregnancy, straightforward birth experience. She should be back to doing X, Y, and Z. very early postpartum with no complications. Like that's sort of the expectation. And if we look at you as like a case study, that would be what you think. But
Yeah.
that's, again, it's not really reflective of the reality of the majority of female athletes. And even the ones that we see sharing online, they have their own struggles. It's just not easy to talk about your prolapse or your pelvic pain
It's
or,
hard.
all of the aesthetic changes that aren't shown.
Because you feel like you've failed.
Yeah.
It's hard to when I try to be vulnerable on the internet, and hopefully I do a good job at it, but it's really hard because I'm like, well, if I have these issues, I don't want people to think I have these issues because then how am I going to help them?
Oh, yeah.
But, to the same,
Oh, yeah. I know. I've sat in
sometimes,
that for many years, and it's hard because
yeah.
you don't want people necessarily to compare to you, but you're like speaking from the place of you're a real human, you're a
Mhm.
real coach. There are so many variables that we cannot control, and we are all working with the cards we've been dealt and trying to learn. And I think as coaches, that's what makes it, I guess, even more impactful is that we can share the perspective that we personally have, that none of us are exempt, that
Yeah.
we can still struggle. We
Yeah.
can support those who kind of are the exception while supporting the majority of people who do need more support through pregnancy, through postpartum, with their new body, with their mental health, with the reevaluating the role fitness plays in their life now. And I think it's actually, I know your kids are younger than mine, but it's gotten easier on this side of things now that my kids are a little bit older because now I'm saying, hey, like I'm on the other side of those seasons and it feels good here. Like it feels good because you have more consistency, you have more routine, you're sleeping more, you're not needed as much and like, obviously you're still very needed and needed differently, but your capacity changes. And I think when we talk about athletes and coaching, so much is related to mental capacity, physical capacity, emotional capacity. And it is hard when you're in the early eras of motherhood and pregnancies and postpartum because you're never at a really good baseline until they're a bit older.
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that because I actually like I have your voice or like your posts in my head of like I'm on the other side. It does get easier, it does get better. Like not that I want to be there right now,
Yeah.
but it is, it's such a challenge because you compare to like your old self and things that you used to be able to lift and just things that I can't do right now, just because one, like my time is so limited. I'm not always getting the best sleep. And so it's hard. And yeah, I think, it is so important to share. And I've realized like the more vulnerable I've gotten on the internet, that it's just been so appreciated by others because others have been like, wow, I'm dealing with this too. Like, I'm not broken. There are not these hard and fast rules that I have to meet postpartum. Everyone's journey is so different. Thank you
Right.
for sharing, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think it's hard to normalize like struggle postpartum without being this buzzkill. But at the same time, if we're only highlighting, like, look how incredible this mom is.
Yeah.
And if whatever can do this by 6 weeks postpartum or should be able to return to whatever 8 weeks postpartum, now, especially as for athletes, like that is the bar and they're going to compare themselves to that. And so you're either comparing to a lot of the exceptions, or you feel like you're a buzzkill and that's discouraging. And so to navigate that messy middle of, again, where most people sit that's the challenging part, I think, in the online space as
Mhm.
coaches and as women that have been there.
Right. And just not pressuring these moms that they have to do this or, be here at a certain point. And so I think it's a really important message of like, we had these resources for you. There is importance to like rehabbing your body and building slowly and progressing and gaining strength and all that type of stuff. But if you're not mentally ready for it, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And, like, I think it's interesting because of your Olympic weightlifting background and even like your, background in gymnastics, we know from those two perspectives alone what goes into peaking, right? When you are like, there is so much that happens prior to performing your best. There is so much that happens with Olympic weightlifting for hitting those numbers that have nothing to do really with the load, but has everything to do with like timing or like capacity or how long you spent training at a certain threshold
Yeah.
before you're pushing it. Like it is so incredibly calculated in both of those sports. I'm using those as examples because that's your background here. So I think from like an athletic perspective and from a coaching perspective, we acknowledge that you're not just suddenly going to be able to do a certain move in gymnastics, or you're not just suddenly going to be able to hit a certain load in your snatch or in your clean and jerk, that we're breaking things down. We're working small components of these Olympic lifts, not just the entire movement pattern.
Yeah.
And you're doing that for weeks and months on end.
Yeah.
There are so many parallels to pregnancy and postpartum, specifically postpartum, but we've absolutely overlooked basic progressive overload in that particular season, because so many people are wanting to maintain during pregnancy and then get back to where they were pretty much immediately postpartum. And they're like, baby's out. Okay, like now I'm going to have these expectations to perform and have this skill set and this capacity. But again, we're operating at a deficit, and that's not how any other performance goal works.
Right. I think kind of similar topic. The moms that I love working with all of the moms that come into my world, but my favorite is when they either come to me when they're like trying to conceive or like freshly pregnant, like 4 weeks, because I feel like I can really instill that mindset in them of like it all starts now. Like you prepare now. I have a lot of people who are like, I'm going to work with you postpartum. I'm like, okay, that's fine. But like, no, work with me right now. Like, because there's so much we have to work on, that's going to prepare you for postpartum, like not only physically, but like for that mental aspect too. Yeah. And I have one mom in mind. She's an Olympic weightlifter. She actually competed at the USA Masters Nationals at 16 weeks pregnant, did 95% of her best. Like it was really exciting. But we like went about it in a way of like, okay, we need to be cautious, and not really cautious, but like be mindful in some areas, if you feel good, these are the things, like learn how to listen to your body, right? Everyone tells you how to listen to your body, but you don't actually know what that means. And so with her, I worked a lot on like the mental side of things too, because as she was approaching her third trimester, she's like, well, I feel like I really should. What did she say? She was like, I feel like I need to do this because I don't have long before the baby comes. Like those weren't her exact words, but she felt this pressure of like getting all of these workouts in because she knew postpartum was probably going to be more challenging. And I was like, no, that's not the mindset that we want to have. I forget exactly what I said to her, but basically just coaching her and teaching her like slow is okay. You are preparing yourself right now for that slowness. So if you need to back off of a workout and maybe just drop it down to dumbbells, or just go and maybe hop on the bike for 20 minutes, that doesn't make you any less of an athlete than you are right now. It doesn't. It's going to make you a better athlete long term. And when you're postpartum, it's going to make you a better athlete and better prepared to return back to Olympic weightlifting when you want to. So anyway, it's just kind of like popped up in my head. It's so important to address the mental component of pregnant and postpartum.
It's so true. Like kind of treating that third trimester as not just an effort to maintain, but kind of gradually deload aspects of your training.
Yeah.
I find with the majority of people I work with, like that is the secret to having an improved postpartum process.
Yeah.
And it is not what a lot of athletes want to hear. And it is certainly not intuitive, because you're like, I want to do the most for as long as possible. Because yes, again, postpartum, I know I'm not going to be working out for a while, or I know it's going to be different, or going to be this. And so they almost like try to front load a lot of like their training and their fitness and capacity. But there is so much value when, especially when they go to their professional athletes, I see this, when they are willing, they understand process better than anybody, right? Like they really understand process. And so the ones that are almost taking this season as an opportunity to step back from how they typically train in their sport, or just like the intensity, the loads, the volume, they end up having such a faster postpartum process.
Oh yeah.
And, because they're like, oh, my body finally had an opportunity to like do less and to be less stressed out and to less like challenge.
Right. Like they're less burnt out mentally too.
Yeah. That's a huge part of it. And whether we're talking about professional athletes or just all of us who are like, the washed up D1 or whatever, like, where it's like we still really value our fitness and athleticism, but it's not because we're trying to compete or perform at a certain level.
Yeah.
That mindset is still there. Like you cannot erase that part of you. And so it's really hard to reassess your relationship with training and what it looks like, and being okay with not doing the most and not training like you would if you were in season, or if you were training for a competition or something. It's very hard to shift out of that mode
Oh, yeah. I mean, let's see, I don't know how many years, 7 years removed. What is that? 2019 to 2016, maybe a little longer removed from like competitive athletics. And I will say, like, my mindset's probably gotten even a little bit better. But being postpartum after my first, I was actually working with Christy and she's like, well, what are your goals? And I was like, well, I think I want to get back into Olympic lifting and competing again. I never really did. So I got pregnant, but like, I don't know if that's really what I wanted, but it's like what
Yeah.
I was so used to. And I will say, like, it kind of sucks being in that, like that's like you're constantly searching for something, like it's hard. And I'm better at it now because now that I'm a mom of two, I think I even recognize that like my role as a mom is super important and I love it, even not that I didn't love it, but like I appreciate it and love it even more than the first time around. And
Mhm.
so I have less of those like athlete thoughts of like, okay, well, what am I going to get back to? Like, but also like, I still like want that. And so I think it makes postpartum even more challenging. Some people are pretty dead set on returning back to their sport.
Right.
But also I feel like there's a lot of moms just like living in that limbo almost of like, this is who I was and I loved it and I succeeded at it and I had so much joy doing it. And I have so much joy being a mom, but like, oh, there's like still a little something missing. And when you can't push yourself the way you want to in the gym, I mean, this is actually like where I'm at right now. Like, I still can't push myself in the gym like the way I want to. And it sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks. And it's just like, so yeah, it's still just like balancing both worlds and it's such a challenge. So
It is because you're in the middle of this like identity shift and you're not like on one side fully. And we can say, yes, these things coexist, but I think it's like the relationship we have with it too, where there's like the athlete you self that exists outside of motherhood and you want to honor her and her potential and her like what she's experienced prior and what you know is still kind of like in you and still
yeah.
possible. But then also just staying present in the moment of saying, but like right now, my life is this. And if I want to do that, that means sacrificing somewhere. And
Yeah.
that's a really hard situation to sit in.
Mm-hmm.
And not to sound like this old like lady, but where you're at right now, even in that identity limbo, is truly really temporary. And then fast forward not even that long from now, you're going to be in a position where you're not feeling like you're having to choose because just like your demands as a mom
Yeah.
change and shift even just a little bit. And you realize, okay, wait, I didn't get worse. Even if I had time away from training how I used to, now I'm smarter. I understand my body better. I'm more efficient with my training.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why we see like, and it's almost like okay to have a pause where you're not like done, but it's just not the intensity or, the frequency that maybe you were training before.
Yeah. It's that all or nothing mindset, and it still creeps in. I've definitely gotten better about it. And the athletes that I work with, like I definitely coach them up on that all or nothing mindset because you still have that. It's like, well, if I can get my whole workout in, then I might as well just wash the entire thing. It doesn't, mean anything if I can't get it all in. And it's like, no, actually like protecting your routine, getting in and moving for 20 minutes, it's still gonna benefit you long term. And if you can trust that process, and it'll always ebb and flow. I mean, you'll have times where you really trust that process and you're like, okay, you're right. Like, I only have to work out 3 times. Well, not have to, but like instead of my hour and a half sessions, like 30-minute sessions are okay. And I'm still seeing progress
Right.
in my aesthetic goals and also my strength goals. And yes, like maybe some things are going to be a little bit slower naturally just because this is the season of life we're in. But I think it's really a beautiful thing when you can trust that process of letting that like all or nothing mentality
It
go.
is. And it's hard because like we know how to leverage that athlete brain, and if you like you needed to go hard and you needed to perform, like you could push yourself. Like if you did a block, like you could, but it's
Yeah.
also looking at, well, at what cost? Is that taking away from other responsibilities I have? Is that putting me in a position where I know my body's actually not ready for that because it's still recovering or managing something? So again, it's this conversation where we have to balance like what is my lifestyle and athletic readiness. It's not one or the other, it has to be both. And when it is one or the other, that's when we see a lot of people kind of experience mental struggles or physical setbacks. And
Yeah.
that's like the the hard part of working with this population is everyone is on their own journey that looks different, those decisions, but having the support from a coach like you who just understands the nuances of this is where you're at now. And it doesn't mean that you won't be where you want to be. It's just that process of getting there is going to be different than it was prior to becoming a mother.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when they can trust that, it's an awesome thing.
It is, it
Yeah.
becomes such a rewarding process to support women through these seasons because it is so different than other athletic comebacks or processes. Like there's so many variables that influence how they perform, how they feel, and just like, I guess the actual experience, right? Whereas before it's all pretty straightforward. Eat this pretty
Yeah.
consistently. You're cutting. So we're going to be like dialed in here, or this is like what your like program looks like. This is when we're pushing. This is when we're, and now when you're coaching moms, it's a big shift in really looking at that whole person.
Yeah.
So what does your coaching look like? If you've mentioned working with, some high level athletes, but also Gen Pop. So what does it actually look like for you?
Yeah, so naturally, I attract a lot of like higher level athletes in Olympic weightlifting or even crossfitting, just really wanting to, because they want to stick with those sports, right? And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think I kind of approach it of like, how can we train smart and how can I kind of educate you in a way where you like understand your own risk tolerance? Because that's going to vary per person. I did not want to train the Olympic lifts in pregnancy because I felt like it was uncomfortable for my body. I didn't like it, but it doesn't mean that client Y can't just because I didn't, And so it's really just educating them on it and how can we, like by using all of the principles that you teach in your training, like how can we go about it in a safer manner so that they can still have that athletic identity, train the way they want to, push the way they want to, but then also educating them like what to look out for. So if we need to take a step back,
Yeah.
when maybe we need to modify. So it's really just not like I tell people, like, you don't have to give up the training that you love. We just have to go about it in a smart way. So yeah, I train them. A lot of those moms work with me on the one-on-one level just because there's a lot of customization with that. I typically recommend that. I do have a group coaching program. I do have some high-level athletes that come in there as well. But they more so don't want that customization. So it's more of just like a 3-day-a-week strength training program. They have access to me Monday through Friday, live coaching, but just a little bit different. And then I do have a self-study course for like that early postpartum period that people can purchase as well.
Yeah, I love that. So I want to hear more about, as an Olympic weightlifter, you were pregnant and you mentioned that it just wasn't really comfortable for you. So what did you feel? Because I think a lot of people assume if you were doing it before, it's fine to keep doing it. You should keep doing like that kind of train of thought. I think especially in the like lifting based community, powerlifting, Olympic lifting, CrossFit, etc. Can you say more about what your body felt during pregnancy?
Yeah, I think some of it was, so this would have been back in like 2021-ish, 2022. So I actually, when I retired, I actually kind of went back to Olympic lifting and competed a little bit. So I was signed up to compete at American Open Series 1 at Arnold's. Found out I was pregnant, trained to compete. I competed at 6 weeks pregnant. You're hardly pregnant at that point, but like still it was scary. I was like, do I wear a belt? Like, I feel like tired and fatigued, and I felt fine and actually did really well at that competition. But afterwards, I think I more so just approached it like almost, I think there was a little bit of fear because I think back then it was less of like, you didn't really see a ton of pregnant moms competing in that, and still you don't. But I think some of it was like, okay, well, maybe I should just more so focus on like slow and controlled. A lot of it was just like what I could commit to too, as working full time as a nurse. And so I had like some like round ligament pain, and it's not that anything was really bad. It's just I didn't really like the quick movements for my body. I just felt better doing like more slow and controlled movements. And so I decided like, you know what, I'm just going to temporarily like hang up my shoes for Olympic weightlifting because I liked slower movements. I liked the way it felt on my body. I also didn't know what I could do, and so I didn't push it too much past the 6 weeks. And then also just like time capacity was a big thing too. I was only working 3 days a week as a nurse, but still like that's 3 less days of training. I only had 4 days of like really training. So, I mean, I guess I should back up a little bit. I did CrossFit too. So I was waking up and doing CrossFit before my 7 a.m. shift, at like 5 a.m. doing CrossFit stuff in there, in those workouts, Olympic stuff in Olympic weightlifting in those workouts. But I really saw the value in just slow and controlled movements, like keeping my body as strong as possible. To me, I still even have that mindset now. Like even when the Olympic weightlifters come to me in coaching, we prioritize more of like strength training.
Yeah.
Not a ton of the Olympic lifting is in there because it's kind of like, that's what you want to do. It's your identity. I'm going to kind of teach you how to do it safely. But the bulk of your program is I recommend being more of like strength training based. So I saw the value in that in my first pregnancy. So that's why I kind of went that way. So it was a bit of both, just like didn't like the way my body felt, but also I recognized that with my limited time, I should probably focus more on.
Yeah. And I think and that's so normal, like, especially as your body starts to change structurally, like the Olympic lifts they dial in such a specific pattern that you don't feel as explosive. You don't feel as strong. It's so dynamic. And then of course, when you add the load to it, like, it's just hard. The bar path, like things that you worked so long to really dial in, pregnancy changes that. And again, like you said, it is everyone's own journey with like what they're comfortable with or not. But I think that's like some of the challenging elements of that particular sport, not just talking about lifting or load in general, but just that how dynamic and explosive those movement patterns are when you're in a season where your body just naturally isn't as dynamic or explosive because structurally it is changing so much.
Right. And not for everybody, but you're probably going to be able to continue lifting heavier in a squat than you are in a snatch. So it's kind of like thinking about we do want to maintain, like you always talk about deloading as well, but like I do want to maintain as much strength as possible. And so I'm going to be able to do that with a squat versus snatching 65 pounds. You know what I mean? Like, not to say that that's going to decondition my body, but my body's going to be way better off lifting a heavier load as long as I could tolerate it,
Yeah, absolutely. And it gives you that foundation, and it's all transferable. And that's what I try to, when we're talking with our maybe more sport specific athletes, say like all the strength training you're doing, like the compound lifts, the accessory movements, all of that is transferable to the movements and the sport that you want to do postpartum. This is kind of an opportunity to improve that, to improve your overall athletic baseline and foundation. So then when you're dialing in some of those nuances and specifics of, like training variables, like you want to be more explosive, you want to like have an improved range of motion, like you will have better capacity for that because of the foundation you were finally able to pay attention to.
Well, absolutely.
Pregnancy and your postpartum rebuild, like that's, I think, the leverage point for so many athletes.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true because as an Olympic weightlifter, you're so specified in that sport. And there are probably things missing in that training that when you come to me, I mean, I've had athletes come to me and my style of Olympic weightlifting was a little bit different. My coach kind of coached me a little different than the majority, but very much heavy focus on like overhead press and bench press. So I had a very strong upper body compared to, I guess, maybe a lot of people, not very strong lower body, unfortunately. But if anyone listens to this in the Olympic weightlifting world, they'll know me as Mary Peck, who did low bar back squat and everyone disapproved and all that stuff. But anyways, different story, different time. But they come to me and we have like a focus on upper body, and then like they leave and they're like, oh my gosh, I've never been so strong. You know what I mean? So it's not like that specific example, but there's so much that you probably have not neglected to work on, but you haven't really been able to work on. And so it's almost like that silver lining of like, you can, like use pregnancy as a leverage to get better at other things, to get stronger at other things.
Yeah, it's so true. I see that a lot with the runners that I work with who just like, they love to run and they really are competitive in running. I'm like, I promise that you will recover postpartum so much more effectively if you prioritize strength training over running during pregnancy. And that you don't always want to hear that. And it's not to say don't run during pregnancy. That is not what I'm saying for anyone who wants to pick apart my words.
I know.
Right? It's like, if they want to keep running, great. But also, like, if the goal is to perform really well in running postpartum, having that strength training foundation and prioritizing that during pregnancy
Yeah.
helps so much. And not just runners, like, so again, so many of our sport specific athletes that, have postpartum goals, even if it's not performance based or really competitive based
Yeah.
goals, it's still just building that foundation so that they feel better and move better and are just able to, like, I don't know, just be in their body
I
more
know. Same
postpartum.
as like with CrossFit. It's not that CrossFit's bad, but like I
Right.
kind of look at that like if we don't do them consistently in like a program consistently, in a sense, they are kind of random workouts that you're doing, right? Just to kind of like bring your heart rate up and, not to say you're not getting stronger, you're not really following a plan, but like take a step back from that and do them because you enjoy them. But like take a step back and really just like buckle down and do some strength training, like very consistent routine. And you're gonna notice that like you are a better athlete for it when
Yeah.
you return back to it.
Yeah. I know we talked about this at the coach course, but just we can candidly share here that, not every CrossFitter and not every like sport specific athlete wants to hear it, but there's so much value in your basically within that first year-ish postpartum, or at least for a season, a block of like a couple months, focusing on like hypertrophy and almost like a bodybuilding split type of program can be so incredibly beneficial for both their postpartum recovery and like bridging the gap into the performance that they want to do. But so many times we see them sign up for the race, get back under the barbell with Olympic weightlifting, going back to CrossFit, like going back into the specifics.
Yeah.
But when they can have at least a small era of
Yeah.
doing some bro kind of training, I'm telling
Yes.
you, I feel like it just really makes such a difference.
Oh, yeah. And I don't always want to focus on the aesthetics. I think it's a-okay to have aesthetic goals, but I will say like postpartum after my first, when I did kind of transition more to like that bodybuilding, like strength training, less Olympic lifting. And I'm just going to talk about my arms specifically. Like, I don't feel like genetically I was gifted very great arms, but like I noticed such a difference when I was pregnant with my second, or like even before, like how defined my arms looked versus like how they used to look. And even in pregnancy, I felt like I kept it. And then postpartum, I just felt like more confident about my postpartum body. I mean, because that is part of it, right? You look at it, you're X amount of pounds heavier, like insecure, but I don't know. I was able to maintain like a bigger butt and I was able to maintain like leaner arms. And like, I don't know, it was just because I focused on more of like that bodybuilding and I don't know, specific strength training, less specialized training, that I felt even better about the way that I looked. Functioning is more important. You want to function well too. But as someone who wants to, I have aesthetic goals, it was just helpful in that realm too.
Oh, I totally agree. And I think that's a really important thing to acknowledge, that like it's like, how can we help women feel better from the inside out? And like,
Yeah.
maybe that style of training is one of the ways that they could do that. And it also reinforces what you had mentioned about kind of like more slow and controlled movement patterns
Hmm.
and really being able to understand the body. And like we joked about listening to your body. None of us really know how to do that, but it
Hmm.
does force you to slow down enough where you're not just grinding through pain or symptoms. Like you just have a lot more body awareness. And I think body awareness during these seasons is really, really critical for
Yeah.
the entirety of the process.
Yeah. And I do think that you're just going to be more like connected to your body as well, like in your core and stuff, if you're not rushing back into the higher intensity stuff right away. If you could really just like build that strong foundation. I mean, I hear it too. I know I've worked with moms who worked with me for a little bit and then they went back to Olympic lifting and they're still talking about kind of how their core feels weak. And not to say it would have maybe been any stronger if they worked with me, who knows? But it's just,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's very much a thing. And like along similar lines, in the Olympic lifting community and in the powerlifting community specifically, it is very common to see women pee on the platform, right? Coming out of the bottom of her squat, or like when on the catch and then that transition part.
Mhm.
I want to hear your experience and your perspective on, I think, the cultural and the normalization of that just kind of being a sign of like lifting heavy, or that that's what happens when women reach a certain threshold of lifting. What has been your perspective or your experience with that?
So I have not ever peed on the platform, but I've been around competitors who have. And it's not really talked about. It's just kind of like, they'll go up and they'll pause the clock and someone will just go up and clean it up real quick and no one either really addresses it, but also like behind the scenes, I feel like it's just like badass.
Yeah.
Like, wow, they're freaking bad. I almost said the F word. They're freaking badass because they just peed on the platform. Like they lifted a heavy ass weight. Like how freaking awesome. And it's like back then I didn't really understand that there were things that we could do, that was like pre-pregnancy, like pre-understanding pelvic floor and core. But yeah, it's like, no, like we can. I think the message has shifted though. I mean, I really think like it's becoming less badass and more like, oh, wow, maybe I have something that I need to address and deal with. And even at my last CrossFit gym, we lived in Virginia Beach, there was a sign that basically said like, this is common, but not normal. Or this is, right, did I say it right?
Yeah.
Common, but not normal. Yeah. And I was like, oh, wow, that's awesome. Like peeing going jump ropes is common, but not normal. Like that's so cool. You have a poster up there like that.
Yeah. I'm working with a weightlifter right now, and like we've worked before, and she's like, I've always just kind of dealt with this. Like I've worn a pad when I've competed always. Always. And
I don't want to name drop anybody, but I think I know who it is.
Yeah. And like we've become really good friends, but it's beyond just like, it's not that her pelvic floor is weak, right? Like we know that it is a sum of so many variables that when you have, especially in Olympic weightlifting, you have your movement pattern dialed. Like how you clean and jerk is how you clean and jerk. How you snatch is how you snatch. Like it is very hard to make some of those micro adjustments. In general, like take pelvic health out of this. Like if you're trying to work on improving your form, it's hard because so much of your form is already embedded. So introducing like a new way of doing something is very challenging, especially in that particular sport.
Yeah.
And, with her, it's like a sum of things. And it's not that her pelvic floor is weak. It's not that now she's perimenopausal or that she's had 2 babies. It's like how she has always braced. She's always pressured down in her pelvic floor. How she catches the barbell, like her pelvis is so tucked under. She is so low and under there. And it's like the pelvic floor has such a hard time absorbing that force and transitioning when now she's also already like set herself up with that pressuring down. So she's adding to the pelvic floor, and then the pelvic floor is not in a great position to absorb that force on top of that Valsalva and pressure. And so trying to undo some of those patterns
is hard.
I'm not trying to like change how you clean and jerk, but like I'm talking about centimeters of an adjustment that can make a big difference, or just retraining your brain of like a higher and wider brace for your Valsalva, and it's really interesting with that particular population, even differently than powerlifters and CrossFitters, trying to help them with some of their pelvic health symptoms because of that very particular movement pattern.
Right. I have an athlete now who is actually her like baseline was peeing before working with me, before getting pregnant. And so she's actually the one that competed at Masters Nationals. It was actually good. We got, cause she saw pelvic floor PT alongside my training, and nothing ever really got worse. So like her symptoms never got worse. If not, they like got maybe a little bit better, if not stayed the same, which I feel like was pretty awesome because there was so much more demand being placed on her body in pregnancy. So yeah, it's just really teaching her how to brace differently, how to redistribute that breath up and wide, I think's made a big difference. And you do have to talk about pelvic health and everything. And a lot of us are high tension athletes. And so having tension in that area can absolutely contribute to that. But those techniques definitely helped.
Yeah. And it's just interesting because it's having to undo some of those habits, because it's really rewiring the brain more so than it is like a pelvic floor contraction here. That's not like that. You can't do that in sports. You can't do that, especially in like really, explosive movement patterns that are dynamic like that. But all of this to say is there can be extreme improvement in symptoms and experience and even athletic performance when you are able to implement some new strategies. And are you going to always be able to do it at your like max loads? No. But when you can train that threshold up at lower percentages, lower loads with like this new set of circumstances, over time, if we can be patient,
threshold,
oh my gosh, so much, right? Like performance threshold, symptom threshold, everything rises. And it's really cool to see. And I know that you and I both have been able to witness this. And I want to like share this for those listening that feel like it's too much work or it's not worth it.
Too late. Or
Yeah, or it's too late
another
to
one,
do anything
like,
about it.
I'm 8 years postpartum, like,
Mhm.
this is never going to get fixed. Yeah.
Right. Or like, I always peed, or this is just my body. This is just
Yeah.
what it is for me. Like, you're not like, look, you're special, but like, you're not that special, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's so
Yeah.
much we can do to improve your performance, but in a way that's also going to improve your long-term quality of life. Like, what is your life like when you are in your 70s, 80s, etc.? Like, when, we want that pelvic floor to help you have an improved quality of life long term. I'm sure as a nurse, like, you see a variety of lifestyles and experiences and aging processes, and fitness will always be a benefit, but it's just not a guarantee. And
No.
it makes it really challenging.
Yeah. I think sometimes having that medical view can be a little frustrating, just in
Yeah.
terms of how we approach, it's more, I mean, you know how it is. It's like, I mean, I have a public health background, so I'm very much on like the preventative side of things.
Yeah.
And also now I'm a nurse, so very much on the other side of things where now we're fixing the problems, but
Yeah.
it can be frustrating too, because it's less focus on preventative than it is on
Right.
fixing the actual issue post
Yeah.
like surgery or something. Not to say surgery's bad by any means, it's necessary at times, but
Well,
yeah.
it's just like, how can we be proactive instead of almost like waiting for there to be too big of a problem? And I think athletes, again, we're so good at compensating. We're so good at being like, well, it's not that big of a deal, or I'll deal with that later. Or,
Dealing with
like,
it.
we create like a lot of different justifications around our experiences.
Mhm.
And when you add the layer of motherhood in there, you're also just like, I don't have time for any of that. Like, I'm already like barely getting any workout. I'm already like stressed out. I don't have time to make an appointment or to do this or to do that. It
Yeah.
is hard, I think, to prioritize yourself in some of the ways that you actually need.
It is. I think it's important too to realize like you don't have to like, yeah, maybe temporarily we're going lighter, right? But like also a lot of this stuff can be worked on with the lighter loads. And because you were saying like, is it going to happen automatically with a heavier load? No, like we're just trying to increase that symptom threshold. So, but it's not like you're completely changing your training. It's just like we're working with you and your training.
Yeah. And I think that's such a great point. It can all be integrated into what you're already doing. It doesn't have to be like this separate program or this separate, like, adding to your overall
Yeah.
capacity. It does not have to be in addition to, it can complement what you are already doing. And it will make a world of difference in how you
Mhm.
feel and what your aging process is like. Because, pregnancy and postpartum are, I refer to them as catalyst seasons. I know you've heard me say that a million times. But what is also on the horizon for so many women shortly after becoming mothers is perimenopause, when there's significant shifts in our hormones, which affects our tissue health and pelvic health. And so it's like, maybe it's not a big deal right now, but at 40 or 45, you're not like washed up, but you want to make sure that your pelvic health is in a good place before
Yes.
going into those seasons, so that, again, you can have an improved quality of life and athletic performance.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not like adding a whole nother program or, it's like I think I really appreciated it because as a coach, I think it's easy to get hyper focused on pelvic floor and core and like your messaging. And I've absolutely done that. But it's just like, I don't know, like just working with your trainings, right? Like we're not adding all these additional things. Like, yes, there's always going to be some kind of growing pain when you're starting to work with a new coach or, adding in like new techniques and stuff like that, and new movements maybe, but it's really just like working with what you're already doing.
Yeah, from a coaching perspective, if we can just like really emphasize looking at the needs analysis, right? We go back to like nerdy strength and conditioning principles 101. And it's like, what does this person need right now? What does
Yeah.
their body need in this moment? And that's going to help us make the best programming decisions, right? That's going to help us create the best coaching experience and outcomes based on them right now. And yes, we take into consideration their athletic background. We take into consideration what they want to do long term. But who is the human in front of me right now? And like building out exercise recommendations and coaching around that person. And it's so hard to do.
Yes. I think we get so caught up in like we have to do XYZ exercises.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, there's so much. I mean, we're just repeating things, but like there's so much that we can do with your clean to improve your outcome or with your squat to improve your outcome. Like
Yes.
you don't have to go to, I don't know, do this completely new program that's like dead bugs and bird dogs. I mean, it's all important stuff and stuff that I include in my programming. I mean, there's going to be stuff in my programming that maybe you've never done before, because I know that we have to work on specific areas of the body, but also you're still going to be doing what you want to do. We're just adjusting the way you do it, I guess.
Exactly. And I think that helps it feel like you are in control, and it can be an empowering season. These seasons of pregnancies and rebuilding postpartum and like reevaluating what your life is like as an athlete will serve you long term. Like, as it is not for nothing. It is truly like, I look back on those seasons, I'm like, oh my God, I learned so much, like as a coach, as an athlete, and it has set me up at almost freaking 40, which is unreal, to feel better than I did at 30. Like truly, like athletically, I am performing better now, but I think you just acquire so much perspective, so much knowledge. Your training is just smarter, like everything does become better, even alongside all of the life changes, even as your body changes, even as your life changes. Yeah. These are transformative seasons, and it's not for nothing. It really does set you up, especially when you have, insight and support from coaches like yourself. So I'm so appreciative of the work that you're doing, and you're doing a really great job. And I'm very thankful.
Well, thank you. I'm so happy I came across you and your coaching and was able to go to the live. I hope you do more of those, because I just loved being in person. It's awesome.
I like really want to do more of the live certification weekends. It's so fun to coach like that, and just have like, yes, curriculum, but also the ability to like have conversations and riff a little bit, and it's just more candid. And
and also like meet people with different backgrounds too. That was cool. I mean, the dancer, I think it's her name, Elise. Yeah, she was in there. That was awesome. I was like,
I was like, what?
You were like, oh gosh, like what do I do here?
Like this, I haven't heard of this. Please say more. I don't have a dance background. No, it was so fun to do those coaching weekends, and just like the P&PA coach network is incredible. We have coaches from all over with so many different backgrounds, and they're using this work in their own unique ways. Like maybe you might lean more Olympic weightlifting, and that's great, because we need this conversation in those communities where we have our CrossFitters and our dance community and our yoga, Pilates, like Gen Pop or athletes. It is all transferable. I'm so grateful for, you being a great example of that.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah. So where can people follow you, learn more about the coaching you do and services that you offer?
Yeah. So pretty much Instagram, that's where everything's at. So at Mary Pet Coaching is my Instagram handle. You can either message me. I mean, feel free to message me. I love talking to people. Like, you don't have to be scared. It is me behind the messages too. I'm not, quite there sending those automatic messages, but all of my programs are in there, so you can apply to one-on-one coaching. And then if you're a good fit, then I'll reach out to you. I also have a group coaching program you could just go learn more about and join. And then also if you are like pregnant, about to be postpartum, and you want to build back up to like barbell training, Olympic lifting, strength training kind of thing, you can join the initial program, 8 weeks, to kind of help bridge that gap and get you back to that type of stuff.
That sounds so great. Well, thank you, Mary. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast, and for becoming a coach all those years ago, and then for continuing your education just a few weekends ago in San Diego. You're doing an incredible job, and I'm, again, just very thankful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Practice Brave podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review and help us spread the work we are doing to improve the overall information and messaging in the fitness industry and beyond. Now, if you are pregnant and you are looking for a trustworthy exercise program to follow, I have you covered. The Pregnant Athlete Training Program is a well-rounded program for pregnancy, with workouts for each week that are appropriate for your changing body. That's 36 weeks of workouts, 3 to 4 workouts each week, and tons of guidance on exercise strategy. We also have an at-home version of that program. If you are postpartum and you're looking for an exercise program to follow, the 8-week postpartum athlete training program would be a really great way to help bridge the gap between rehab and the fitness you actually want to do. From there, we have the Practice Brave Fitness program, which is an ongoing strength and conditioning program where you get new workouts each week and have a lot of guidance from myself and my co-coach, Heather Osby. This is the only way that I'm really offering ongoing coaching at this point in time. If you have ever considered becoming a certified pregnancy and postpartum athleticism coach, I would love to have you join us. Pregnancy and Postpartum Athleticism is a self-paced online certification course that will up-level your coaching skills and help connect the dots between pelvic health and long-term athletic performance, especially during pregnancy and postpartum. Become who you needed and become who your online and local community needs by becoming a certified pregnancy and postpartum athleticism coach. Thank you again for listening to the Practice Brave podcast. I appreciate you. And please help me continue spreading this messaging, this information, and this work.